Good evening. I would like to call to order the planning board meeting for July 16th, 2019. First on the agenda today, we have a preliminary discussion with Ron Aspero, owner-president of Shrewsbury Home Incorporated, regarding the development of 0 Hudson Street, map 30, parcel 54, 5.6 acres. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. For the record, I'm Mike Sullivan from Cornerstone Engineering. I'd like to introduce Ron Aspero and his son Kevin, who are the owners of Shrewsbury Homes, who have the property under agreement. First, I'd like to thank you to allow us to come in and speak informally, and hopefully we'll expedite the process as we move forward. The parcel is on Hudson Street. Hudson Street is here. The bend on Solomon Pond is up in this area here. It's a 5.6 acre parcel. It's surrounded by MWRA, Mass for Water Resources. There's an easement to the rear of the property, and there's wetlands in this area here. The topography, there's a high point here, and then it slopes in all directions from that high point. We have not done any engineering other than soil testing, so this is very conceptual at this point. We have 3 proposals that we're going to present, 2 of which we can do by right, and 1 that we're going to need some consideration from the board, which is why we're here tonight. The first concept is a 6-lot subdivision. The zone is RC, 20,000 square feet, 100 feet of frontage. The proposal here is a 250-foot cul-de-sac with 6 lots off the cul-de-sac, all having the requisite frontage and area. The second proposal is a by right proposal, just 4 A&R lots, 100 feet of frontage, 20,000 square feet is the minimum, and these will range from 51,000 to 80,000. Again, that will have the 100 feet of frontage and extend the length of the property. The third proposal, which is what Ron would like to do, everybody's favorite subject, is 3 conventional A&R lots and a duplex lot. 3 A&R lots would have the requisite area ranging from 26,000 to 31,000, all with 100 feet of frontage. The duplex lot here would have the 30,000 square feet of area required, 150 feet of width, which is required and we satisfy. However, we're only going to have 133 feet of frontage versus the 150. So we're 17 feet deficient from the requisite 150. Because we're asking something from the board, Ron is proposing, if the board thinks that's appropriate, he will give deed, reserve as a easement, restriction, the whole back section. Now, as I said before, there is an easement there, but there's also going to be additional area that will, again, we haven't done the engineering, but will probably be somewhere between 2.5 and 3 acres would be the total area that would be given back to the town. The reason he wants to do a duplex, Ron's partner would like the duplex for himself and one of his kids. He's been looking for a duplex. He thought that he loves this area, and he thought it would be appropriate in this instance to build a duplex for him and one of his kids. So that's why this is the preferred approach to the development that they would like to pursue. With that, I'd like to, Ron wanted to say a few words. I just want to turn it over to Ron.
Well, we're just simply not coming in for a quick hit. Lived in the town half in the past 20 years, worked in the town 35 years. Most of our development was up on Green Street, Ball Hill area. We lived up there, my wife and I had donated 7 acres of land to the Mount Pisgah area. The trails were in the heart of some of the land we gave. Additionally, Shrewsbury Homes contributed to work on all of the buildings on the 135 soccer field. I'm still a member of the Northborough Lions Club, and even after I left town for a while, I was on the design review committee in town. I apologize for the Dunkin' Donuts now. interest is to try to do something that is still good for the area. I'd rather not do the subdivision because it involves the removal of a lot of soil and basically clear cutting the area. Again, by right, but it's not something I'd like to do. If you see the way we've developed Green Street, both in Boylston and Northborough, you can see the way we developed that. And so we're just asking you to consider our proposal.
Okay, does anyone on the board have questions? Michelle, I'll start with you if you've got any questions.
Well, I'm not quite sure what value donating the land would be to Northborough. What abuts it, Kathy, that it would add any value? It's like, it seems like the town already has a surplus of land and.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, it doesn't abut conservation land.
Yeah.
But I think, is it DPW land or?
Is there something with the aqueduct and DCR back there?
Yeah, but I mean, as far as town-owned land.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
Doesn't,
no, it does not abut town-owned land.
And
Here's the piece here,
Yeah.
Michelle. So, you've got Commonwealth here. This is
The land
easement, but
yeah.
not owned.
yeah.
Commonwealth here,
Yeah.
and the dam is down here, which is what this
Yeah.
is all associated
But
with.
the town already has a lot of parcels that they're eventually down the line gonna look at what they need to get rid of, and I just don't think that adds value to, your proposal is give us a duplex and we'll give you this land. I just don't think that,
Well, we just thought it would be appropriate to come in
Yeah.
and ask, if we're asking for something, we ought to be willing to give something. So
Yeah.
that was the approach we were taking.
yeah,
In terms of the value, that's certainly something
Yeah.
that you guys would have to make a determination on.
yeah. I mean, that's up to town staff whether that adds any value, but for me, it just, I just know they have a lot of those lots around town already.
Any other questions?
No, I wanted to see the cul-de-sac again. I know that's not your preference, but I actually liked it in the beginning. Is that, do you have to build a road? Is that what you have to do for
Yeah.
the cul-de-sac?
This is my preference, because this is the most engineering.
And is that going to,
It's a
six,
250-foot road,
oh, okay,
and then, obviously you'd have the frontage off it. So
Yeah.
it's not a long road, but like Ron had indicated,
yeah,
with this high point here and to meet the appropriate slopes, yeah, you'd pretty much have to clear cut this whole area. Certainly doable, but the soils are all beautiful sands and gravel, groundwaters. We were down 12 feet, didn't get any groundwater, so certainly from a drainage and a septic area, these are certainly very conducive from that perspective.
and that's 6 single-family lots?
Single-family lot.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I think that's a little more attractive than when you do the 4 in the front, because they're long, narrow lots. And they don't add much value because they're just sort of long and narrow, but I like this one a lot. I don't know what the other board members feel.
Okay. Amy, do you have any questions?
What size homes are you planning, do you know?
Probably 2,800 square feet,
How about the duplex, like each side of the duplex?
2,200 per side. 2 car garages each.
And, I mean, I don't think I have a lot of questions, because we didn't have these drawings in advance. But I think I did look up back there where the DCR and aqueduct is, and in the back, I think it's part of like the floodland. Have you been in front of conservation or anybody?
We've done no engineering. This is the first step right here.
Because I think the whole back would have a huge buffer anyways. I think it is wet back there.
Yeah, as I think it was Mike who just said, from time to time, the planning board has, I've put people on the agenda to come in just on an informal basis to, before they, and actually, this isn't design review committee, but I mean, we encourage it with design review committee before they spend a lot of money engineering wise. So where the applicant here, may possibly be asking for a waiver, just, wanted to come in informally to talk to the board. So this hasn't, staff hasn't even reviewed this, Amy, this, there are no plans. This hasn't, come to anybody. We haven't met as staff yet to review anything. So you're the first ones to see this and just to provide some feedback to the potential applicant.
Okay, well,
Any other questions?
no, I was just curious on the sizes.
Okay. Really?
I-
Oh, Michelle.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, this also represents, I mean, it looks like Vanessa Circle. Isn't Vanessa Circle off of Hudson Street? So that sort of reminds me, it seems like appropriate for the area, something for consideration. They did a nice job. I think they built about 6 homes up there as well.
Really, any questions?
I do not.
Okay. So I haven't seen any plans in advance or have any information from from staff or other committees, so I really don't have an opinion on this at this time. I appreciate you coming in to present your materials. Anthony, we're also missing a member tonight, so I don't know how much guidance this has provided you.
Yeah, I mean, the big question is, the duplex. I know that's been a bone of contention for a while, and it just, rather than us going through the whole process like we did last time on Lincoln Street and get bogged down, if it's something that, and we're not looking for a definitive answer at this point, if it's something that seems appropriate, we could submit some plans to you and continue this if you'd like, if you need to think about it. But it just to go down that path of spending a lot of money going in a direction that is not going to be productive, that we're just trying to short circuit that type of thing. So, obviously we're not looking for a vote, we're looking for opinions. I appreciate Michelle, weighing in on that, and that's all we're looking for at this point, is just to hopefully give us some kind of direction that we can come in and continue to move forward.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I personally don't have enough information to give you an opinion. I think that would be part of the whole process in the public hearing in order to give that opinion, formal or informal. So that's my perspective of it. I don't know if other board members feel differently, or.
I mean, I agree, it's not a public hearing, so we're not hearing from the abutters or anything, but, I mean, I would opinion for the 4 A&Rs, because that's what's allowed by right. And that would be my, not vote, because I'm not voting tonight, and no one's here, but.
No, we're looking for opinions.
Right, if you wanted to be safe, I would go for the 4 A&Rs.
Okay. Oh, any public comments? It's not a hearing, but I'd be interested if you'd like to continue.
On the last 4 lot thing, you don't have to get up, I can remember it, but I was concerned how far back from the river and the wetlands. And if that green area that you were proposing to donate, is that, it looks like a 220-foot contour there, but is there wetlands? You got the.
There's definitely wetlands back there, no question. Yeah, there's a stream. It's actually shown on this is just the GIS.
And you got a pumping station up the road, right?
Here's a river here.
Right.
I would say, and again, we haven't flagged it, but the low area here, I would say that would be the extent of the wetland.
That's all wetland.
And then it starts sloping up. So, if I was to guess by looking at the contours, I would say this is your wet area here.
Well, I think that's a fact that it ought to be considered, and from an emergency management standpoint for the future, you want to make sure, I would say that does have value from that standpoint, whether the town has land adjacent or not, from an emergency management standpoint, when you're looking at climate change, when you're looking at more flooding, when you're looking at just preserving wetlands, that has value. How you want to treat the duplex, I don't, that's up to you guys. But I wouldn't just cross that green area off. And that's a point for conservation to consider. But I wanted to make that known. That would be my just off the cuff concern.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Ron.
When you superimpose the cul-de-sac onto that, aren't you close to the wetland or in the wetland?
No.
Back there.
The cul-de-sac only goes back 250 feet. Again, this is your wetland here, and this is the end of the cul-de-sac. I don't know whether you've ever walked the property.
No, I haven't.
It kind of goes up, and then it starts shooting down. The grade change here is a down gradient to the wetland in here. So from that wetland, if I'm guessing correctly where it is, from the end of the cul-de-sac.
You got a pretty good drop off there, don't you? Mrs. Sullivan? That bad, huh?
trying to look it up, but I'm pretty sure it was in a wetland and you can't build on it.
130
Anyways.
feet from the end of the cul-de-sac to the wetland.
And that includes the house lot. It's part of that 130 feet.
The house lot.
The house would be in here and over here.
So you got the proper setback from any wetlands anyway with the house.
We would have to, we've got a river that we have to contend with, that we have to separate from that, and we've got a water vegetated wetland that we're gonna have to deal with.
There's proper setback for the house and for the septic system.
Okay, okay,
Meeting compliance.
understand.
Thank you. Any additional board comments?
Nope.
Any additional board comments? Okay, so it sounds like we're not prepared to give a specific opinion. I would suggest maybe, I appreciate you not wanting to waste your money, but kind of doing your own assessment of risk reward and deciding what you want to actually go through, which process you want to go
I
through.
appreciate your time.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You need this for?
Yep.
Okay. We are moving into old new business, and we're going to start with consideration of the minutes, starting with the June 18th, 2019 minutes. Did everyone have a chance to review the minutes for June 18th?
Yep, I'm all set.
Are there any edits?
The only thing I noticed, I thought was my computer's a little B at the top
Oh, I
in front of the planning board,
Yeah.
but, I mean,
That's already been,
yeah, so other than that, I had no edits.
Okay. So would anyone, Michelle, you're okay?
Yep, I'm all set.
Fine, yeah. Okay, would anyone like to make a motion to approve the minutes as amended by removing that weird little B?
yeah, it's already been taken off.
Oh, okay, so fine.
I make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, minutes pass. We also have the minutes from the joint meeting of the selectmen. I actually did not have a time to look at this. It came a little late today. Did anybody have?
No, I mean, I didn't
I know.
anticipate anyway.
It was a long
But
time.
I sent them out as soon as I
know.
as soon as I could. So the selectmen, just to give you the update, the selectmen did approve the minutes last night.
Okay.
And so if, you just want to, take a look at them, I can put them on the next agenda. Or if you wanted to review them tonight, whatever your,
Well, would the board mind if we look at it the next meeting, just so we can get to the master plan discussion? Or
Yeah.
does anyone feel strongly
No,
otherwise?
I had a couple changes, but I can email them in, or we can talk about them next meeting.
Do you just want any amendments emailed to you?
yeah, well, actually, I don't know how we're gonna do that, because they've already been approved by the selectmen.
I did notice that it was pretty short. Like, there was a lengthy discussion, but they're not quite like ours. I
It was
would
only
say.
about Brad, like, there was
Yeah.
a couple of sentences in there I didn't think
Yeah.
we said. Like, where it says, board members stress the need for a better communication between the planning board and ZBA and are concerned that Mr. Blanchett wouldn't be the best choice. Like, I felt like we have a good relationship with Brad and the ZBA, so I don't remember saying he wouldn't be a great choice because of our relationship back and forth with the ZBA. Like, I thought after the ZBA, there should be a period there. I don't know, do you guys remember saying that? Brad wasn't a good choice because of communication between the planning board and ZBA?
No, I don't think so. What is the usual process for amending joint minutes?
I don't think we've ever done joint minutes, so,
Well, what if we delay them till next time and then find out, like, if we did have edits, what's the process, and if we could
yeah.
do
Yeah.
that?
Okay.
I can check with the town
Okay.
administrator's office.
Okay.
Okay. So next we have so we're going to continue the minutes, the joint meeting minutes from June 17th, 2019 to our next meeting on August 6th. For next item on our agenda is Master Plan Steering Committee update, a review of the goals and recommendations. So for this piece of it, I think, does everybody have a copy? Oh, now they do. You gave everybody a copy. So I was hoping, we have Michelle and Amy who have represented the planning board at the Master Plan Steering Committee. And what I was hoping is if, Michelle, you could lead the discussion here and we could sort of frame it. I only want to take about a half an hour, just so that we could spend all night discussing it. I'd like to take about a half an hour for us to talk about, if you could lead us in the discussion, and a couple of the pieces to frame the discussion that I had in mind, and if anybody feels differently, that's fine. But just to talk about per section, maybe some discussion highlights, or if there are any critical debates that we should be aware of, like discussions that came up that you thought would be relevant to the planning board to know. Amy, this is for you too to think about. If it has, what are the impacts, if this particular goal or recommendation has an impact on the planning board for the next year or two, in your opinion, and I guess thinking about the extremes of I know the Master Plan Steering Committee will sort through short-term, medium, long, and ongoing, but just as part of our own conversation, if we think of the extreme ends, are there any quick hits that you've identified in this category that we could start working on? Or is there anything that we think is really far out there that we don't really need on our radar now, but is still included in here? So for example, if we start at the end with transportation, things like the state's Complete Street Program, could a quick hit be for us to, gather information on the criteria if we don't already have it? And, maybe the Worcester Regional Transit Authority shuttle bus between towns is something that's really in the future. So we don't need necessarily to think about it in terms of immediate impact on us. Does that make sense for discussion, to just kind of frame it and keep us on a certain track? Okay. So if that makes sense, Michelle, do you mind leading? Oh, and also, if we could just be, you don't have to if we could just have an interactive discussion, it doesn't have to be like, what do you think, what do you think? Like, we could just kind of discuss it, probably go faster.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so back to transportation. So one of the items that we talked about from the very beginning of the master plan, or interjected, was to have some sort of mitigation policy with the master plan on how to incorporate mitigation. And this is, I think, important for us as we see projects coming forward where maybe someone is asking for some relief and we would ask for some mitigation in return. I'm sure Kathy would help advise us on it. But I think that is very important when it comes to sidewalks. I mean, I've been on the board for 15 years and we've asked numerous times about sidewalks. And I think it came across through everyone that we need to improve our sidewalks or having some sort of sidewalk plan. So I think, and then also coming to sidewalks is bikes as well. So I think that is something that where we could maybe look into our zoning or how we could implement it, or when we have someone come before us who's asking for a specific waiver or variance or some relief on our side, and likewise on the ZBA side, how could we incorporate getting some relief on the sidewalks with them having the resources right there to either build it in front of their project or go and build it in another section in town. So that's one thing that I think is worth looking at and having a thoughtful discussion on. There's quite a history about sidewalks in Northborough, so without getting into it, but Kathy can go, we tried this, didn't work, tried this, didn't work. State didn't let us do, it goes back and forth, but I think it's worth documenting, going back 10 years, what worked and what didn't, and how to move forward rather than just not doing it. So that's my suggestion on the sidewalk. As far as bikes, I think they'll probably come in the same, we could look at how you do bike routes and stuff like that, but we don't have any control over the major highways like Route 20. We only have control over Northborough roads.
And just to interrupt, one thing about the signed bike routes I found out, because it was confusing to me, is a lot of people complain about an overabundance of signs in town. So when I read this, I thought, oh, we're sticking up signs saying go this way, go that way. But when they talked about signed bike routes, they're actually going to write it on the pavement. So it would be more arrows. It wouldn't be actual signs plunked all over town telling you which way to ride your bike. Just in case anyone was concerned about that, because I know that was a concern of mine.
Well, I just came down Lyman Street where I was crossing over Route 9 to go down Route 9. And if you think about the number of lanes, interchanges, things that the whole redevelopment by taking down the hospital, it was all done on the pavement. Doesn't help when there's snow on the ground.
Oh, yeah.
But it does help when the roads are cleared. And I think there's some talk of, whether we can use that or not in our property. But we'd have to check with Mass Highway along Route 20. Amy, did you have anything else on?
No, I thought Michelle said about the sidewalks were really great. Good
Right.
ideas.
So as far as townwide traffic flow and safety, I think one of the things that would be good for us to come out is that we always look for 3 intersections in town that are really difficult in looking somehow down the line for traffic lights. That's the intersection of Maple Street, intersection of Lincoln Street, and I'm sure there's another one out there, Fred, that you constantly hear about. But some newer down the line, those are going to get built out, and we're going to have to figure out how to deal with it. And I know that there's a state sort of list of where you have to get to a certain level to even be considered. But that talks a lot about into traffic flow and safety.
So did the committee identify those big spots, or is that just you now thinking?
No, I think it's like always been brought up in the discussion, but I don't have much to say about, this was probably as part of the busing service that happens with Worcester Regional Traffic Authority. And I think they were just looking into how to expand it more to meet the needs of the seniors and people with special needs. I think we would be looking for guidance with the town for that, and I don't know if we could adapt any zoning to that as well. As far as how the changes of the growth would affect future transportation, again, when you look in here, you look at a lot of like what they talk about feasibility studies and how those are going to be funded. And again, we could go back to the mitigation, which is how we received some of our funding through a major project in town. We got some mitigation money for a feasibility study. Again, we could look at, if you have some major impacts like the Northborough Shopping Mall or other developments up there, how's that going to impact the town's transportation and how we're going to fund it and where's the money going to come from to do a study on that. I mean, some of the other things when we talk about providing electric charging stations, is that something that we could look at now along with our solar bylaw? Or is that something that?
I don't necessarily know if that has to be something to do with zoning.
Yeah.
I mean, it may through the site plan review process, but certainly, many of the communities inside of 128 are some of the communities themselves are requiring things like the charging stations. If parking garages are being built, so many of the parking spaces, have to be for, have the charging stations. A lot of companies are putting in charging stations themselves, for their employees. So whether or not zoning has to be adjusted, I don't know right now.
An idea might be, I was just up at the Solomon Pond Mall, and they have the charging stations there. It could be if we see more development or new development happening at the shopping mall in Northborough, we factor that in as, look at, if you're gonna do that, let's look forward thinking for the charging stations, because it's in the Marlboro Solomon Pond Mall. And I'm sure we're gonna see more development up at the Northborough Shopping Mall.
Does anybody have an idea on the charging stations, how is it by credit card? Do you pay a fee for that? Does anybody know? I have no idea.
I don't know how they work. I actually think that some that I just recently saw in a parking garage were, the cost is factored into the, you're already paying for the parking, but the charge of the electricity is not being charged to the, consumer. It's all part of the development, it's factored into the development of the parking garage. But I that's just one parking garage I saw.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but it's certainly something, we don't have to reinvent the wheel on it because, like I said, most communities inside of 128, it's a matter of course that people are installing these, the developers and so forth. So, but I mean, we can certainly look into that if we go down that path.
So one item that was really interesting to me, to one of the meetings I attended, was about this wildlife passage. Like, as we take down different areas and neighbors start to say, oh, all of these, the wildlife is in my neighborhood and all that, to improve those sort of pathways for them. Is that something that planning board would have, like, just in terms of, like, when we develop zoning, is that anything that we'd have impact on, like ensuring that those are there, or is that something?
I think if we, possibly there could be some language in the zoning or in the or the subdivision rules and regs. But I think, we would be looking at this probably in conjunction with like the Conservation Commission and the
Yeah.
Open Space Committee.
Okay.
How to best, if we really were going to look at, the impact of a road in particular. Through our open space, sort of just how we have developed, well, the town doesn't develop the property, but I mean, how the town has reviewed property as it's been developed in town. One of the things that we have in the past looked at is, connectivity to, from one large open space area to another open space area. But, I mean, you can go, not that it's an extreme, but I don't think it's anything that's gonna happen in this town, but, I've seen where an interstate was built and there was an overpass that was built as a wildlife corridor. Instead of a road over the interstate, it was a way to connect one side of the highway to the other side of the highway. So for the, animals to travel. And then I think that there's part of the review with the Conservation Commission and the Natural Heritage Program in Massachusetts that also reviews that when they're looking at filings. It probably will end up, if we wanted to pursue that, it'll probably end up being like through the site plan process, possibly.
The other thing that I would suggest on this to think about is, as we develop Bartlett Street, and we see that we have a lot of those warehouses up there, we already know what's happening over at 140 with the 2 Federal Express facilities that are being built there. We only did this with A. Dewey Powell, but I think it's really reasonable to have a discussion with Kathy and Fred again about this, is if anyone goes in up there, that possibly they are given some sort of restrictions if you only have deliveries downtown, you're only allowed to use Bartlett Street 220. Otherwise, you have to go out to 495 and loop around again. Again, I know that's added time for these guys on the trucks and stuff like that, and probably an added expense, but at the same time, if I could tell you the number of Federal Express trucks I see going downtown, if you're really sincere about improving downtown, you've got to get those big tractor trailers off. Now, we did it with A. Dewey Powell. My office is downtown. I rarely see an A. Dewey Powell truck down there, never. So I think they're following, what the board asked of them. However, the board did not ask for Federal Express to do that. I regret that, because now I see so many of them, and I live on Howard Street. I take forever coming off Howard Street sometime when they come off of the Church Street exit. So I think if we're going to continue to build that sector out as a transportation sector, we're going to see more and more trucking companies use that, which makes sense because of the connectivity to the major routes. Then you're going to have to think about how you're going to preserve your downtown.
Yeah.
And those roads, I mean, they can't go down Hudson Street because they'll get caught underneath the aqueduct bridge, but they can go down Church Street. And that's a shortcut. That, to go out to 495, down south, and come down 290, that's a longer route for them. I understand that. That's why it's easier for them to come down Bartlett, go through the center of town, and cross out to Church Street and shoot back up. It's a shortcut, but you're going through neighborhoods and you're going through downtown. And I think that's a huge impact. So I don't know what you guys are, thoughts are on that, but I know we recommended for A. Dewey Powell, and I think it worked for them. I mean, maybe Federal Express will just do what they are going to do because they're not required to it, but if any other large company comes in, I think it should be a requirement. And that would talk about how you're going to alleviate some of this transportation congestion in your downtown as your growth happens.
I wonder if something like that, because that's really good, if that can be written into our zoning, because we all will know that, but as a condition or something, because when we're off the board, future people won't have the experience like that you did.
Yeah.
And they won't remember, we're supposed to tell them to take the highway and not downtown. I don't know if anything for future, like warehouses and trucking, if there can be a condition added, or just something in the bylaws so future planning board members would know. I don't know.
That's a great point. Okay, anything else on transportation?
No, that's probably all that I would.
And then once we get to the end, I'm gonna open it up for some public comment. So we'll just get through this, like these couple
Yeah.
pieces, and then if anyone wants to comment, you're welcome to. Okay.
Did you want to do public facilities next?
Sure.
So the big topic for the public facility, which I thought was a really good idea, and we tried to, when we were doing the master plan, not to become too narrowly focused to one project, but of course, you know, you have to give some sense of direction. And so we talked a lot about the fire department, which is in here having a new home, and I think somehow in here it's listed as, you know, for us to consider that as one of the main goals for the master plan. I think we did a lot of discussion, and I think there needs to be, I don't know, where this, if this is under the planning board, we certainly would probably see increase in commercial if it was, but we need to expand the water and sewer infrastructure in town. And so I think if that actually ever happened, and the expansion happened and was approved and we could move forward, I think you'd definitely see a changing in the community as far as commercial went. It would also give a relief to homeowners who are on septic as well. Was there anything else that you remember on that, Amy, with for public facilities and?
No, I think number 3 there, the MVP, Kathy, you've already started on that, right? The municipal vulnerability. So things for us might come out of that with zoning, right, maybe? But it says participate in it, but Kathy's already started.
Well, actually, the DPW is taking the lead on this right now. They've started with the process. It's a 2-tier process, or 2-phase process, of first getting your plan, you know, approved by the state, and then the second is then it opens up the funding, you know, for your specific projects and or particular projects. And so the Department of Public Works is working with a consultant right now to prepare that initial report. And the first and the primary project for them right now, for the town in general, but it's going to be led by the DPW, is the dismantling of a dam that we own in Shrewsbury.
Oh, wow.
We own in Shrewsbury?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, the reservoir that we own in Shrewsbury, which is no longer, you know, I mean, for eons has not been used. I don't think it was ever used as a public drinking supply.
Not very long.
Yeah, and so the dam has been you know, it's deteriorating, you know, yearly. And so that's one of the first priorities of the DPW, is that needs to be taken down. And we'll get some grant money to do that through the MVP project, program, excuse me.
And then I had a question about the green community piece of it. So we got the grant for that. I remember a discussion at one of the meetings. And then did the committee talk about creating a sustainability committee for ongoing projects, or is that related to this grant?
Well, I'm sorry.
Michelle or Amy, do you remember?
We haven't done anything.
We haven't done anything.
Oh, okay, so Kathy, you must know the answer.
No, I was just gonna say, so the, you know, the town of Northborough is a green community.
Yeah.
And we have received our first round of funding, and there were, you know, projects identified that the state approved that, you know, what our first round of funding would be used on. And so we do, you know, we don't in this town right now have a sustainability, you know, committee. It's not anything, you know, that's been so specific, you know, talked about by the master plan committee, but, you know, it did come out as a, you know, a potential recommendation, or as a recommendation as under the green communities. The part of the green communities too is the I'm awaiting some information from them, some more detailed information than what we're going to talk about tonight, just real briefly about the solar, because that's, you know, that's part of the green communities too, is, you know, if towns want to put together a solar bylaw.
Oh, okay.
What projects were identified to the green community?
The most of them had to do with the school buildings and you know, improving the boilers in the schools, looking into how to make, lighting more efficient in all municipal buildings, or just efficiency in general. Also looking at whether solar could be added to the roofs, in particular at the schools, so.
Thanks.
Which is what the next item would be, the 3-2, which we'll talk about tonight on the solar. We didn't talk a lot about the education system because there's already a master plan throughout Northborough 4 underneath the, the school committee, so we didn't really touch base on that, other than to really support them through the town because we have an excellent school system and we'd like to keep it that way. So we did highlight a couple of things here, but didn't really talk too much about it because they have their own master plan.
So regarding the school, sometimes when we look at plans that come through, we talk about like the school is, overcrowded, or what's the impact of this development on our schools. So is there anything that would help us to get a good understanding of, what that, if they're doing these projections, like how we could access that, so we're actually making informed decisions when we get some sort of like, I know perhaps something like an Avalon maybe, I don't know if there's even space for something like that, but how would we be able to best make decisions about the impact on schools?
Well, one of the things that, there's a couple ongoing things. One of the things, just in general, I'm in contact with the school department calls me, we talk about various developments. There, as you just said, Carrie, there really hasn't, since Avalon was built out, there really hasn't been, the sort of development that we've had since then, has not had an impact on the school system. But so one of the things with the former superintendent, and one of the things that I'll continue with the new superintendent, is again that periodic check-in. So that's sort of just something that's always ongoing, just between staff members. And then if there were ever a large-scale development, and again, what does large-scale mean? Well, it's different to anybody, or to everybody. But one of the things that we had done in the past as a community, the town administrator's office has put together, a staff mitigation committee, where which has included the school department. And so that's something that we do in-house to review the projects. And then on, again, the larger projects, part of their impact studies that they need to do is that's one of the things that they review, is the impact on the school department or on the schools in general.
After the master plan, will we get, I'm sure part of the master plan, we'll see what the school numbers are and the housing numbers, like will we get a general idea of how, like certain districts?
Certainly in the master plan, there'll be demographics, there's a section on demographics. And when the draft, which they're finalizing, will first go to the, master plan steering committee. I don't know if, I haven't seen that portion yet, Amy, so I don't know if they specifically break out the schools. But, that's certainly something that we can ask, the schools about.
Just because sometimes, we hear rumbling from the outside for certain schools are overcrowded, so it would be good to actually see numbers. So
and that's, anytime those sort of rumors have happened, I've checked with the superintendent's office, and brought that information, corrected that information and brought that back to the planning board. So, we would continue to do that also. That's just ongoing work that we do as staff.
But I do think as a board, the number one item that came out of public facilities and services was to expand the water and sewer infrastructure. And when you're talking about your town going to the next level, as far as commercial and even residential, I think that's something critical that the town has to look into and resolve that issue. And that's consistently come up at this master plan and several of the meetings that I went to. Amy, they were over at, in the spring sessions that we went to over at Holy Cross. There were times where they talk about that, where you're talking about your water and sewer infrastructure is so important in your master plan as you're planning out for the next 20 years. So I think that is important, and you can see how it came up as a number one under this topic.
Okay. Anything else on public service today that you can think of? All right, open space. Oh, Michelle, did you have anything else to say in the public service?
No, but
Public
I would like, from time to time, to understand how we're getting to that water and sewer. Maybe that's not part of our master plan, maybe that's not part of our zoning, but it certainly ties into planning.
Okay.
Amy's our representative on the Open Space Committee. She could probably talk a lot about
Okay.
this.
All right. A lot of the ones on open space, I think we're actively already doing, like the strengthen the trail connections. I'm on OSR too. A lot of that they look at every month. I feel like I talked to Ashley about the open space too, and she agreed with all the recommendations, and we brought it to the open space committee. And
Oh, what was the feedback from open space?
they agreed. I
Okay.
mean, they read through it and they didn't have any concerns or questions.
Did
and
anything stand out as a wow factor that they thought was really great, or it's been on their agenda?
A lot of the things have been on the agenda for a long time, like increasing the CPC money and connecting trails, and so identifying acquisition opportunities for parcels. We do that every meeting at open space. And one of them, actually, I was going to bring to open space is there is a parcel next to middle school. I think Michelle knows about it. But I saw one of the recommendations here was talking about fields. And I just didn't know if that would be something the open space would be interested in, because they talk about extra fields, and it does abut up with middle school. But that would be something they'd have to talk about at a meeting. Have you seen it, Kathy, at all?
Have
The
I s-
lot that's for sale?
Oh, yeah, the Oberg's lots.
I don't know who owns
Yeah,
it,
the-
but it connects to the middle school. And I don't know if it's something they'd be interested in or not, because I'm not on the open space anymore now.
Oh, you're not?
No.
No, it's gonna change to Anthony.
Yeah.
I'm on
No,
groundwater.
Ashley had, it's gonna be on the agenda Monday night.
Yeah.
Is the next open space committee meeting.
Will Anthony be back? Because I'll go if he's not back.
I don't know.
And the town dog park, we talked about before, like Mia was working with DCR on that.
Yeah.
I don't know if anything else has happened.
Is it worth putting, like, a master plan's 20 years out, so hopefully in 20 years you might get a dog park?
I think it's sooner rather
Is
than
it
later.
worth putting in zoning what a dog park is and what your expectation is, like doing a zoning bylaw? No?
No, because it's not really, I mean, a dog park, yes, is that land use? Yes, it's how to use a piece of
Yeah.
property, but it's not, no, it's not anything that belongs in zoning.
Okay.
Because, you know, zoning is defining, you know, what the land use is, whether it's allowed or not in that particular district, and then what the, you know, the size and the frontage and, you know, of the lot that, you know, needs to happen. So this really falls under, you know, between recreation and open space.
Okay.
Of, you know, just about, you know, it's a recreational opportunity. I mean, what was very interesting is when we first started looking at, and there was a group in town that was looking at dog parks, you know, they talked about how, you know, everyone thinks it's for the dogs, which it is, but there's also this real social community aspect to it, as a gathering place, and so I just never thought of a dog park that way, but.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we are exploring the potential use of some state land. I don't think it's going to go the way we had hoped, or the way that we had originally, you know, received some feedback. There's been a little pushback, but we haven't gotten a definitive no yet, but I think it's coming.
Do you think?
But again, that was just on
Yeah.
state land, you know, I mean, there's, you know, other, I mean, we've exhausted a lot of town parcels, as far as, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, you know, going through parcels, looking at you know, what would be suitable for a dog park, but it's still, you know, it's something that, you know, recreation and the Trails Committee, you know, that they're very interested in pursuing.
Okay.
Is there anything that you think has immediate or short-term impact on our planning, or is this something that wouldn't necessarily impact us out of the gate?
Well, one of the classes in March, I learned a lot about the open space subdivisions, but I think I'd have to go into that in detail more before I ask the question on it. There was a lot of information. And I think we do have an open space overlay, right?
Yes,
in our bylaws?
we have 2 bylaws about open space development. One for a very specific area of town, which is the land that's off of West Main Street. It's sort of the backside of Northborough Crossing. Well, it is the backside of Northborough Crossing. So there's a bylaw in place that's very specifically through the planning board and the zoning subcommittee at the time, very specific to that piece of property, given the constraints on that property. And then we also have I guess you could call it a general, but, you know, an overlay district that you know, an applicant could take, you know, advantage of if that's how they wanted to, you know, pursue the development of their property. We haven't had anyone bring one forth yet.
Now, can we recommend it? Like, say a developer comes in front of us, can we say, well, we have this great overlay district for open space. We'd like you to look into that, or do they have to?
You can't
come to us all?
require.
You can't require it?
You can't require them to do that. But it's, you know, it's an option. It exists in the zoning bylaw if somebody wanted to take advantage of it.
Kathy, I have a client who's going to a very small subdivision over in Boylston. It's an over 55, there's probably 25 or 24 homes there. So they're pretty close together. And on the outside, remember how we talked about almost like 8 or 10 years ago, the cluster housing? They did the pass. And I attended a couple of planning board member meetings there where they talked about that was a requirement where they would have the paths around that the residents could walk around the back sides of the properties. And it was more of like a green area. Is that something we could include in?
That's in your existing bylaw.
Okay,
In
okay.
your existing open space bylaw.
Okay.
So, you know, it talks about, you know, the percentage of open space, because usually what you're trading off of is that you're getting more open space as a community, but
Right.
in order to offset that, they get a higher density. So, you know, it's not just a standard subdivision and then it just gets put on a smaller piece of property. There's a density bonus that's part of it.
Right.
Which some applicants will, you know, they find attractive, in that they do want to cluster the houses. And then you take a look at the open space and it needs to be usable, a certain percentage has to be usable. You know, and then you can, you know, further discuss, you know, what does usable mean? Is it for trail systems? Is it a combination of trail systems and, you know, playground for the neighborhood? Or, you know, there's
Right.
a variety of things you can look at and then, you know, work with the developer to make as part of that decision.
Okay.
That sounds like what the class was talking about, the exact same thing.
Yeah, it's pretty, it's pretty I mean, every town's is, you know, and that's the beauty and the problem in Massachusetts is, you know, there's 351 communities and there's 351 zoning bylaws and 351 ways to do things. So there's not one open space bylaw that every town looks at or adopts. But the concept is the same, you know, that there's a density bonus, but you end up with more open space. And it's not just wetlands or unusable land, you know, it has to be, you know, of value to the town. And in that process, Amy, when you were asking about, you know, can you make them do something, in the open space bylaw, what they do have to provide to you, it's called a yield plan, which basically shows, you know, what they would do as a standard subdivision, and then what the proposal is on this, you know, using the open space bylaw.
Okay, so we're coming up to a little over half an hour. So just in terms of these specific open space through transportation, did anything come across to you in either the public forums or the surveys, just feedback from the public in general, that stood out to you, or you think we should be aware of, or that we?
What was one number one thing that everybody wants is open space? Like, if you do the original surveys and you gave a choice, open space was always the number one. But I haven't gone back and looked
Yeah.
at the original surveys again.
And solving some of the traffic congestion. So we already talked about that earlier. And then the walkability,
Yeah, I think it'd be
Yeah.
great to learn more about complete streets.
yeah. And then sewer and water.
So that's a great point, Amy. Are there any, in your observations of the things that were discussed, is there any specific training that you think would be helpful to the planning board or material? So complete streets, maybe if we just go through some of these things and see, like, if we're not sure about an MVP grant or the green community or anything like that, like those types of things, maybe, would that be like helpful type?
As far as the Complete Streets program, just to let everybody know, as far as myself, Fred, the DPW director, we've all gone through training for the Complete Streets program. It's a program that's, you know, run by Mass DOT. And and some towns have adopted Complete Streets, some towns haven't. Some towns have sort of just tested the waters with, you know, looking at, you know, can we just look at one street to, you know, change over into what's called a complete street? So, you know,
That's a good idea.
I mean, that's something that the, you know, the DPW is very aware of the Complete Street program, and they're aware of that it's, you know, in the master plan. Is one of the things that we're gonna, and I know, Carrie, you wanna go on to the, with the rest of the agenda, but just, one of the things that's gonna happen in the next month or so, in addition to the master plan steering committee getting the draft of the master plan, it's also going to go to the various departments in town that are in the master plan, so that they can take a look at it. I mean, they've had the opportunity, you know, all along, and, you know, I've been providing, you know, drafts to everybody. But to take a look at, either to say, you know, oh my God, that is just, it's so not on our radar, or yes, it is, and, you know, it's something that we are planning on doing ourselves within, you know, say 5 years, and maybe the master plan had put it out 10 years, or, you know, vice versa. So they're gonna have a crack at it too, to look at, you know, before it becomes the final version of the implementation schedule.
Okay.
I think this is great that we're doing it tonight, because we do say every month, oh, we met with the master plan, but we never sit down and take the time to go through it.
Yeah, just
You know, before it's all of a sudden final, and it's in front of us, what do you think? So I think this is great.
Okay. If there are any public comments that, only on the specific topics we've gone through. The other stuff we haven't had a chance to look at yet.
Only on what?
The items that we covered so far. So we have open space,
Okay.
transportation, and public facilities.
Dog park.
Yes.
The town or any municipality is under absolutely no obligation at all to provide a dog park to anyone, because a segment of the population, you know, has pets and they want a place to take it. If I had a dog, and I did have a dog, I took it, you know, myself, hunting or to areas where I could run it. Otherwise, he didn't run. There's services that, to use open space planning funding to buy something like that, no. I would hope not. And the service cost to maintain and pick up the waste and dispose of waste is another factor. That comes back on all of us, not just those with the dog. And the benefit of a social gathering place, that's a real stretch. You don't want it. I guess maybe there's some caught up people that need to go to places like that. that's the one thing I wanted to comment about. Where I came here tonight, Kerry, was actually something that's not on your agenda, but it does have to do with the master plan and downtown traffic problem, the big issue. That came up a lot in the master plan. That's one of the major issues in trying to make the downtown attractive, trying to deal with the overwhelming traffic that we have on Route 20 and getting in and out of businesses that are down there already. In the past month, I've run into a situation on accessing into the old bank, the vacant bank area in the Lowe's Market that's being constructed, and Shattuck's Pharmacy. You got Shattuck's Pharmacy taken care of and underway, the construction and going on the Lowe's Market place has been going on for 2 years, doesn't seem to make progress. The bank, nothing's been going on. It's by one owner. And she also owns a house out in back. That bank was built over 30 years ago. We've had an access out the rear of that bank onto Dale Street. It, comes in really handy as opposed to trying to get out onto the main road, although you got lights out there, traffic control lights that will allow you, but trying to get into that access road comes in real handy to access into that coffee shop and Lowe's. Myself and another neighbor went in there about 3 weeks ago and got confronted by a landscape person that was in there that evidently is friends with the owner. She had stopped her. She says, "This road is closed. It's a private drive." And I said, "Geez," I said, "we've been using it for 30 years or more to get in and access the commercial property." Because when the bank was built, they put that road in just for the purpose so you have a rear exit or entrance rather than go out on 20. And now, actually, even it would make a good access and exit to get in out of Lowe's and the coffee shop. So I found out information. I talked to her, said that this wasn't the owner. Today, going in, I was meeting some people up there for coffee again, and I came up from Juniper and up Summit, not Summit, that's School Street, the Summit, and over, and went in Gale Street again, and went in there, and she was there, and she had her pickup truck and trailer across the way. Now, she doesn't even live in town, she's from out of town. She said, "This, you again," she says, "this is a private drive." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "But I'm going through." I said, "I'm accessing, this is commercial property." And I said, "You're not the owner." But she says, "That's gonna be closed off in the immediate future here." I just wanna point out that in all the years that's been there and been used, there's never been a problem going in and out of there. Even the people out on Dale Street has never complained. It is a handy exit coming out of the bank. It would be a handy exit coming out of the Lowe's construction that's going on there, as well as the coffee shop. The entrance off 20 in between Lowe's and that coffee shop is a real narrow entrance. It's not a good entrance. It's not a real safe entrance. Where we're trying to deal with traffic, on 20, and you're putting in a lot more businesses on 20, including a business with residential property overhead down there by the Hillside Grill. You're gonna have more traffic, more businesses, more traffic. And that's great if you had a solution as to what the hell to do with the traffic, which we don't. So every option that you have to try to maintain, I found out today that is a private way. It was never designated as a public way. I don't know what happened. But if, I don't know where that permit process is, nothing is going on with the bank. So there is an opportunity, depending on what she's going to plan for that, to try to make that driveway, that roadway out onto Dale Street a public way rather than a private, have it closed off. There's no benefit to closing it off. I don't quite understand that.
Okay.
But I just want you to be aware of that.
Thank you for bringing that up.
And I'm gonna leave a written thing with you about, where we in the master plan have been discussing traffic
Yep.
all along and what to do, right? We can't afford to be putting up businesses anywhere without really looking at the access, the exit entries to all of these places.
Okay, so I think those are great points. I wrote a ton of them down, and then maybe that's some feedback we can just bring back to the master plan too, so that everyone's kind of has some history on it. Thank you for bringing that up. Any other comments? Henry?
I have two questions, two comments. I agree with Michelle on the FedEx and also the big Harvey trucks come down Church Street and take a shortcut over to 135. Some of them, I think, are trailers.
Oh, yeah, I've seen the Harveys coming down, yeah.
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 And the other question I have for Fred, could the old dump be used as a dog park? No. Nothing can be put on that?
Solar panels? No. Nothing?
Not even solar. Oh.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
4.56 acres.
We'll have to investigate that.
For solar panels.
You want to answer that?
Yeah.
Do you want us to answer?
Yeah,
Oh, sure.
We have, yeah.
Yes, please.
You all know?
I think I know. There's one.
Is there any specific
What happened
reason?
was
There is.
the dump was closed back in the 70s, and the standards for closing landfills at the time are much different than they are now. And anything we do that would disturb that closure that was happened would require us to meet current standards, making it extremely cost prohibitive to do anything there. And including solar, because they have to disturb the ground to put foundations in the ground to hold those mountains. It's been talked about for years for various different things, and each time we've looked at it, the costs get more and more because the state changed the regulations for closure of landfills. Not every year, but it's evolved quite a bit. There's much more involved now than it was back in the 70s.
That's good to know. Thank you.
Nice piece of wooded land on Route 20.
Any other comments? Lisa?
Southwest Coast.
I definitely agree with what.
Oh, I know where it is.
brought up
Okay.
about the transportation, both the sidewalks
Makes
and
sense.
the trucking. One of my first questions on the sidewalks, especially downtown, where we have the Hillside Grill and that new 8 condos going in, even 130 Main Street. 130 Main Street and Hillside sidewalks aren't easily accessible for anybody to walk on. I mean, for Hillside, you have to go up and down, and it doesn't end anywhere, and it just stops. The same thing with 130, it's close to the building, but it doesn't go anywhere. Like, you have to cut through some landscaped area to walk on it, and then you're back into the no sidewalk at all. So is there some way that they can make it uniform, though? If you're gonna be putting in a sidewalk, then it should be contiguous, it should be uniform so that it's only feet from the street itself, like we have multiple sidewalks, especially in the downtown area where you're walking, you're trying to make your way from the downtown to the library, the school or such. Do they make provisions for that, or how would that be put in so that it is contiguous and not just, okay, you want a sidewalk, we'll put a sidewalk. And along with sidewalks is crosswalks, and we don't seem to have an awful lot of consistency in crosswalks. And I've asked Brad to talk to them about it, getting crosswalks, at least one across Maple Street, because of people who go from 6 Maple, the building that's a commercial building, to the bank. I've got pictures of people and kids and everything else walking across there without any protection, and it's a very busy street. I don't know how that plays into the master plan and how that's done. And the uses of sidewalks too is not being used as a parking lot. I've seen so many trucks, between town trucks and landscape trucks and everybody else parking on the sidewalks that then make somebody have to walk into the street to go around them. And in fact, those are there for the protection and safety of the walker. So those are kind of the things I think about with the sidewalks. Then in the trucking, you say Church Street is bad, Maple Street is horrible. Ridge Road, of course, takes the brunt of the FedEx trucks coming back, but then there's Nucor, and there's the company that does the porta potties that use our street as their driveway, and they race up and down. And Rice Ave. I mean, I've seen trucks carry, semis going down Rice Ave. Rice Ave isn't built for it. You've got areas by Howie's place that, there's an area that's compromised because of I think it's a culvert, whatever it is there. There's not enough room for a truck
Is that some feedback as well? Maybe we could bring back to the master plan committee if it comes up for transportation, specifically
Yeah.
that industrial piece. So thank you for bringing that up. Okay, in the interest of time, unless Jason, I'm sorry, did you have?
Michelle, you mentioned the water and sewer infrastructure, and I agree that's a very critical element in economic development we want to do. I just wanted to be clear though, under each of these goals, we have a set of recommendations, and I don't think the order of recommendations implies any rank priority. I just want people not to misunderstand that, and think that because something's listed first, it's considered the most important. That's not the case for these goals.
Got it. Okay, all right, thank you for this conversation. We're going to continue with the rest of the goals and recommendations next time. Next, I'm going to move on to A&Rs. Kathy,
No,
anything?
we don't have any.
Lot releases?
No.
Newton Street update?
Yep, I can give you a quick update on that. As you recall, the planning board sent a letter to the developer, Mr. Ziad Ramadan, and we are in receipt of a letter from his attorney, and that's been asking for additional time in order to complete the road work. And so that has been relayed, to our town council. And he will be in touch, our town council will be in touch with Mr. Ramadan's council. And then also too, the DPW, has stressed to the town administrator, because he also received a copy of the letter, that, that time is of the essence, because, we're looking for it to be, completed this summer. And, they've asked for a 30-day extension, or at least another 30 days to study it, or something to that effect. So hopefully by the, we should, by your next meeting, which is in about 3 weeks, we'll have some additional information from the attorneys, speaking with each other and talking with the DPW.
So we have no choice but to allow the additional 30 days?
I don't know. So that's, they've asked for it, but that's something that our town council, our legal counsel is going to talk to theirs, to his, to find out what, what his intent is. Is he going to be starting and completing it, within 30 days, or, we asked in our letter, it was a July 1st, timeframe of, please, get back to us and get going on this by July 1st, and, that hasn't happened. So, what he's asking for in this letter is that, the town doesn't take any action to pull the bond, within, he's asking for us to not do anything within 30 days. So, like I said, our legal counsel is going to figure out, in talking with him, what exactly his intent is. So
if you wait the 30 days, can you still do the work? Pull the bond and still do the work?
Well, no, this 30 days is just a random
Oh.
30 days that he's asked for.
Okay.
There's no statutory, requirement that we give him an additional 30 days, or, so that's, again, our council is very aware of, that we want this work to be done. The town is in the process of repaving, many streets in town. It's part of the pavement management plan every year. So, while all of that equipment and the company is in town, it makes sense that, we do this also, as opposed to, waiting any additional time and then having to call back, the contractor, the equipment, so forth.
And you have to do a whole new road over again? We'd have to
So,
do.
the whole purpose of
Yeah.
trying, wanting it done this summer is so that it doesn't have to go through another winter.
Exactly.
And become compromised,
Yep.
so.
So you don't need anything from us between now and our
No,
next
no,
meeting?
That's just what's happened, since our last meeting.
Okay.
And at the next meeting, we'll have information from town council that will allow us to inform us of what our decision options are?
Yeah.
Okay.
And how long can they do it up till October?
The goal of the DPW is to get it done while the other work is going on in
Okay.
town in order to avoid a second mobilization cost, thus saving some money and getting more for.
Right.
Sooner the better.
Well, it sounds like we already have the right to pull this bond.
We
right,
believe so.
Yeah.
Yes, yep.
Attorneys just asked for no action be taken while they're assessing it, but again, town council's gonna advise us as to whether or not we have to do that or we can just proceed.
Okay.
Any questions from the board on that?
So if we were to agree to a 30-day extension, do they then need another 30 days of notice if we were gonna pull the bond, or is it something that's open for doing at any time? Because I could see this sort of being dragged on.
Right, and so that's what we're not really, you know, I mean, the letter is very brief.
Yeah.
And so that's where, you know, because we've enacted town council on this,
Yeah,
you know, they're gonna
they'll-
pursue it.
okay.
Right, and then, again, to find out what the exact intent of the developer is.
Extension.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it helpful if the planning board now would send another letter to town council saying that we are not in agreement with the 30-day extension? Is that helpful to you guys, or is it, you don't think it's
Staff
necessary?
Relay that message.
Yeah.
Okay.
And basically, you know, the DPW already has.
Okay.
So,
So if you needed that from the board, I think we'd all be in agreement, just because it's dragging on
but
too
it's-
long.
Yep, but we,
Okay.
the law
Okay.
firms, our law firm is aware, yeah.
Okay, good. All right.
Okay. Subcommittee updates, starting with CMRPC. So there hasn't been a meeting since our last planning board meeting, but I did want to mention a regional recycling forum. Did you see that, Kathy, come through? On August 8th from 10 to 12. So I don't know if that would be interesting to anyone on staff for the recycling component of it. I'm not sure what's going on in that area, but I thought that was of possible interest. Other than that, no update. Open space is Anthony, but you went to the last
I was at
meeting?
the last one, but we haven't met since.
Okay.
They meet Monday like Kathy.
Yeah, so they're meeting on the 22nd.
Yep.
CPC?
Who's on CPC?
It's
Is
not
Ant-
till the fall.
Yeah. it's-
Oh, are you on
will be.
CPC?
I will
Okay.
be,
Okay, good.
starting in,
That's a good committee, you'll enjoy that.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, no meeting.
Design review?
We have not met, but we do need to meet to start to wrap up our duplex bylaw that's still somewhere floating out there, and we hope to get more definitive work from our consultant back. So hopefully we'll be meeting sometime in August or early September.
I have a question. Is there still an open seat on design review?
Is there? Open seat?
Yes,
Yeah.
Oh.
we have in, with Tony's seat.
Oh, yeah, we need to
Fill that.
fill
Well,
that.
it's been advertised,
Oh.
nobody has applied for it yet.
Nobody's come before? Such a great committee. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah,
We need to,
We
as
need to-
board members, to ask around.
right.
Figure it out.
Anyone in the audience care to be on the design review? Any guys? Care to be on the design review?
Everybody step forward at once.
Okay.
All right, so, and anything in groundwater?
We didn't meet either.
Okay.
Will that be August maybe? Fred, or probably not?
I haven't seen any applications yet, so.
Yeah.
Okay, preparation for 2020 town meeting. So we had a couple things last month that we were looking into for this month, starting with the solar, the model zoning bylaw for solar. So Kathy, would you mind explaining, or just like briefly giving us an overview of all these
Yep.
materials?
So there, I don't have a lot, this is the information, let me just start back on this. This is the information that is available, you know, from the state. And so what they have is, the information here is back from 2014. And so I've contacted the Department of Energy Resources to see if they have anything more up to date. This is what is on the state's website. So there is, what you see in blue, with the blue boxes, that is the model language bylaw that they, you know, suggest for towns, you know, as a starting point. So what we need to do, and I've contacted like I said, Energy Resources and specifically our Green Communities staff person that we work with, to ask her for some more specific information, and possibly to even come in and talk to the planning board. She may or may not be the right person, but that's what we're figuring out. So what you see in blue is the model language, and then these other two documents are, one is really a repeat, but with a little bit more detail. The document that's got most of the green on the front is again more model language. And then the other document is just sort of just explains, about solar. But again, it's 2014, so a lot has changed in the field since 2014, which is why I'm asking for additional information. The fourth document that you have, which is labeled draft, that's again off the state's website, and this is from 2016. So again, I've asked, why is a document labeled draft from 2016 on the website? But so that this is all in the process of hopefully getting clarification for for myself, for the community, and for all of you. And then I don't want to really, I guess, jump the gun because I don't have a lot of information on this, but I know that within the past year or so, not a lot of communities, but some communities have not necessarily adopted a solar bylaw, but they have put elsewhere in their zoning bylaw a requirement that any new building has to be solar ready in the event that they wanted to in the future because it's all about loading capacity on the roofs. So, so that those buildings have to be solar ready in the event that someone wanted to, whether it's that particular company or a different tenant, a different owner. So again, I don't know, a heck of a lot about that, but I just am aware of it just from, reading articles and, literature about it. But, so I'm trying to get more, updated information from the state. And then in particular, that we are a green community, are there specific things that we have to include in our bylaw or not? So that's where I am with that.
Yep. So I'd be interested in a couple of things, if you have the time, between now and next May or April, we're going to tell me. First is, are there any communities, especially if they're a regional high school, that have solar on their high school? And how's it going? I think that's one thing that we'd like to look into, municipal buildings, and that was always being talked about at the high school. So just interesting, like you could say Acton Boxborough has it. Here's what they did, works well, something that would be helpful to present at town meeting. I don't know if Tonto has it, but since we have a regional high school, I think that's worth looking into, as well as maybe our neighboring communities. Do they have it on any of their schools? As far as those are the larger municipality buildings, whereas your town hall happens to be in downtown, and I don't think it's.
There are several that are adopting that and have that. I think you can Google it and find
Yeah.
a lot of towns that are doing that.
Yeah.
Now,
Mm-hmm. And then the
fire
other.
station coming up should be
Yeah.
one that's
Yeah.
gonna have that.
And then I know that they have solar in Westboro. I know they have it in Boylston, and I know they have it in Southboro. I'd be interested in our neighboring communities, what their bylaws are.
Yeah, I mean, that's easy enough to find.
Okay,
But yeah.
yeah. So we can just sort of look at, rather reinventing what they're doing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I love seeing it along the highways and on the town-owned land. I think it's a great resource of income for the town, and that's why I'm advocating for it.
Something else to consider too with solar bylaws is, in the past, and I think I've mentioned this, in the past, when people were first adopting solar bylaws, it was the feeling or the concept was all about taking out trees to put in solar panels, which now, particularly environmentalists, but but, you know, even the, you know, the communities are like, that makes absolutely no sense that we're, you know, destroying, you know, either pasture land or, you know, treed, wooded areas. So, you know, there's much more of a bent on using, you know, existing open, not town-owned open space, but I mean existing open space. Again, whether it's pasture land or, you know, rooftops, you know, as opposed to saying, well, we want a solar farm, you know, that you see out west, but, you know, a forest wasn't taken down in order to put the, you know, solar.
Well, some classic examples are, for example, if you go down 135 or in Westboro, right where the railroad tracks are. Westboro's done a nice mini solar there. If you go down Mass Pike, Southborough has done along the pike there. And then as you go, I think the 140 route heading out towards Boylston along the, you know, where the lake is and everything. I think Boylston or West Boylston has done some along there.
Yeah, so I don't know if those are the communities that have done it or if those are private.
Okay.
Because, you know, there's a couple different ones in Westboro. There's one near the 495 Route 9 exchange that's on Caruth Capital Land.
Okay.
I don't know whose land that is on 135, but either way, I mean, it's.
And then, not to take up so much time, but also what we did with National Grid, how National Grid did the parking under, you know, they did a cover parking. The cover port, and the top of the cover port was all solar panels, right? Yeah.
It was.
Yeah, so it's a great use right there.
I wonder if the warehouses on Bartlett can support it, those roofs, hopefully.
Well, I do know that the project that, and Kathy and Fred, maybe you can verify this, but the 2 new buildings that are going on Bartlett, we did ask if they were solar ready, and they said yes, they would be built that way. Is that, I think that's correct, right?
I'd have to go back through my notes.
Yeah, because I think when it came to design review, we were asking that. Yeah, we always ask that now in design review, it's just not written in a bylaw. So I believe if we were to go back, those 2 new buildings, or so, at least we were when they talked to us.
I don't know.
Yeah, so,
They were very large, though.
they're very large, yeah.
So what is a good next step to keep this moving forward? Should we read these materials before the next meeting, or is this something that you think will be beneficial for everyone to look at? And
Yeah, I think Michelle and Amy have seen this before, because again, it hasn't changed since 2014.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, you know, sure, it's a way to, you know, make yourself familiar with the topic. And, you know, I've done, like I said, outreach with the state, and they're just, you know, they haven't gotten back to me, but it's not from lack of trying. But anyway, so that, you know, I mean, I'm still gonna, you know, obviously continue to pursue that, because that's where the information needs to come from. So I'm looking, you know, for updated information from the state, guidance on our, you know, green communities, and then, you know, again, it's easy enough to, you know, collect bylaws from the various towns.
Okay. An update. And then we also last time talked about getting information for the hazardous waste bylaw. I can't remember.
Yeah, I haven't done anything on that. I was just focusing on solar at this point, but it's not, I just focused on that first. That it's not, one was, you know, took precedent or not. I just focused on one of them. So that's the hazardous waste bylaw is something that I'm still continuing to, you know, do some initial research on.
Okay. Any other town meeting prep that we want to talk about? Good. Okay, moving along to board appointment policy. So this is something that we're revisiting now. Is this, does everyone have a copy of the, I don't know if you passed this out or not, the latest?
What I noticed, Carrie, after I handed everything out is, it's either sitting on my desk downstairs or in the copier. I had sent it to everyone, you know, by email, but I didn't bring up the printed version of it. So I can go back down and get them. Or if you want me to mail everyone copies and, you know, take a look at it in August. but primarily what I had sent out to everybody was the Board of Selectmen's version of, it's in the town code, what the reappointment policy is. And I had basically just, replaced planning board with, did a cut and paste and then took out, several paragraphs that, really specifically had to do with other things that the selectmen did. So that's the one version that I had sent you. And then, Terry, when we had talked about this about 6 months or so ago, you had made some comments, and that was the second document that I had sent to everyone. So I can go downstairs and get those, or however you want to, if you want me to mail the hard copies to everybody, or?
Well, I guess my question would just be, if we have it advertised for a design review right now, and we don't have our policy adopted, how would we be able to hash through that?
Well, this board always has always reappointed people, and you've never had a
Okay, so we don't have to
policy.
have that.
Right.
So what is the board's thoughts on, do we need to address it tonight, or are we okay looking?
I'd rather look at, I don't have any updates or anything. I'd rather look in August if it's okay with everybody.
Okay, sure.
All right, so I'll mail everyone the hard copies.
Okay,
I can just swing on the way down, on the way out of the building, we could just swing by the
Okay.
office and grab
yeah,
them.
We can save some
Versus mailing
stamps.
them.
yeah,
Yep.
okay,
Yeah, they should be either on my desk or.
We'll just follow you down.
yeah.
And one other thing I wanted to talk about related to planning board appointments, and we can just lump this in with our conversation next month, was just in terms of, we obviously had our planning board vacancy, and we had, we put together a process in collaboration with the Board of Selectmen. And I just wanted to talk about, one thing that came out, sort of bubbled up to me, is that we didn't really have something in mind of a written thing of what would make a good planning board candidate. And I think that would be helpful if in the future we ever, this may never happen while we're sitting here, but if we were to think about what are the qualifications that we think, as we sit in this experience, that we think would make a good planning board member, so that when we develop our questions, we can say, all right, based on these qualifications that we all agree make a good candidate, these are the types of questions that would make the most sense for this specific role. So, and just thinking about the vacancies, we can just lump that into the conversation next month.
In 15 years, it's only happened twice, so we got another 7 years to go.
You never know. Still be here. Okay. So just in thinking about that. Okay, now
But I think it's a good point.
yeah, just
I
so we
think it's
have that
good.
on file.
Yeah.
We may not need it, but just
Yeah.
so we've talked about it. And let's see. So next we have town planner update.
Just very briefly, I just wanted to let you know, really it was just more about the master plan, since that's what I've been doing and continue to do. We're getting obviously towards the end. So as I had started to mention before, right now, myself and the chairman of the group are just reviewing back over the base analysis. The consultants just updated it because, it's been a year since we first did the base analysis. So we're reviewing that in-house, and then like I said, the master plan steering committee and the departments will get copies of the draft of the master plan draft, and more importantly, what is the implementation schedule that they're going to draft for us and that we're going to review. And then the steering committee will have a first crack at reviewing it, providing any comments back. I think it's by like the end of August. It's all going to go out in an email to everybody. And then we've got a meeting scheduled in September with the master plan steering committee so that we can go over the final draft. That'll be the second chance for anyone to make any final comments or edits. And then where I'm working with the town administrator's office right now on probably an October joint meeting, but I don't have a date yet to to coordinate with the planning board, because it'll be a joint meeting between the planning board and the Board of Selectmen. So that's still in the process. Like I said, I'm working on what that date would be, and then coordinating that with the consultants, so.
Does the public need to see the draft yet?
Oh, yeah, once I have it, so. We'll probably end up putting it up on the master plan website, yeah.
Okay. Any questions on that? Good. Any other updates? Okay. So next planning board meeting is August 6th. In terms of agenda, we have the beginning half of the master plan discussion. When Anthony gets, I believe he's coming to the August 6th meeting.
I think
Okay.
it was just this week that I think it was just this week he was on
Okay.
vacation.
One other thing I was hoping we could do, I know last time we talked about some goals that we had, and I know we had a huge laundry list of our different goals for this year. So if we could just take a few minutes next time to revisit our goals and just maybe identify, if we do have too many or things we don't think we can feasibly do in 2020, what are the top goals? Or alternatively, if someone has thought of additional goals since the last meeting, just that we can reasonably accomplish in our 2020 year. And I think they're actually nicely, just in the minutes. There's a
Yeah.
nice list in the minutes, so you
Yeah.
don't have to worry about going through too much. Any other agenda items that anybody's?
Nope.
have? Okay.
I'm sorry, you
No,
meant
no,
for
sure,
August
go ahead.
6th. No, I was just gonna
August
give you the
6th,
update on the ZBA.
Oh, yes, no, I was just talking for next meeting.
Yep.
Okay, yes, next ZBA meeting.
So there's only one application for the next ZBA meeting, which is next Tuesday. And it's a pump house that one of the buildings is adding out on Bartlett Street. So it's just they need in order to stay out of the wetlands, and they need a variance, because I think it's too close to the front lot line?
Yeah,
Can't remember.
because of the elevation that they need to make it optimal.
Yeah.
Closer to the
Yeah.
road, that's why.
So that's the only thing that's on the agenda. There is an application that I did not provide to you because it's so not complete. So there's another application before the ZBA, but they've already asked for a continuance to the August meeting, and they're probably even gonna have to ask for a continuance to the September meeting. And that is a gentleman and his wife who recently purchased 125 Rice Ave, which is a single-family house with a lot of property, about 16, 17 acres that abut Edmund Hill Woods. And he presently operates a dog walking business, and he wants to officially operate it out of his home and have dog walking trails on his property. So that's something that we've been working with him in-house. He's just recently hired an environmental scientist and a civil engineer. So he's got a little ways to go.
So didn't we already have a resident who wanted to have dog walking or something, or dog housing or overnighting?
There is someone on, that went to the ZBA.
Yeah,
And I forgot whether it was Green?
Brewer.
Brewer?
Yeah.
Brewer Street, okay.
yeah.
Thank you. And he does dog walking and he does dog training. So he wanted to run his business, out of his house, so as a home occupation. And then also be allowed, by the bylaw, you can have up to 3 dogs, I think it is, that you can board. And then over 3, you're considered a kennel. And so that brings you into a whole different, ballpark as far as what you have to do zoning-wise. So this gentleman on Rice Ave, he already has a business, as did the gentleman on Brewer, but he has a business and he walks dogs in town. He goes to other towns also, but he already walks dogs in towns on conservation land and so forth. But he wants to set up his own set of trails, on his property, and he has a bridge crossing. He's gonna have, some.
Did he just buy the property?
Yes. Yep.
That makes sense, because I saw a house go on, and I couldn't understand why it was so high, but now I understand they tacked the land onto it.
Yeah.
That
We
makes
as a
sense.
community, the open space committee had explored purchasing
Yeah.
that property, not the house, but purchasing the rear
Yeah.
property because it abuts Mount Pisgah. Yeah, and we worked with the homeowner for many months, but, you know, he chose to, you know, go elsewhere and sell the whole parcel to someone that was interested.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Now, this man came to the Trails meeting I was at once, and he talked about, he actually has a van, and he goes, picks up dogs and brings them back to his property during the day. Is he still considering that?
yeah, that's what he does. He has.
Yeah.
Like a doggy daycare or
Yeah.
something?
But he actually goes and picks them up, and he was gonna build a dog park on his property, so he would bus dogs in and out. But the concern for me with that is if you Google it, in Natick, there was just a town meeting where they stopped that because the poor neighbors are like, we have dogs barking all the time. And not only that, the vans are coming in and out, and it added traffic to the neighbors.
Yeah, well, that's why, that's all part of his, you know, his application.
Yep.
That's not complete yet. Is, you know, putting in, you know, being able to run the business out of his house, putting in pavement, you know, employee parking.
Oh, it's really
and then,
big.
Is this in residential?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Wow.
But I think, you know, is a little, you know, concern on my part because Natick had the problem. And I don't know if we want to go down that same road.
So once the application is complete, you know, I'll you know, provide you copies of it.
Okay.
And keep you posted as far as his continuances, but it's definitely not happening at the July meeting.
And he's going to go to the ZBA, right?
Yes.
So the planning board could weigh in with a letter to the ZBA. Thank you. Yep.
And joint meeting, do they have any feedback on a possible joint meeting?
No, that's what I'm
Oh,
bringing up
Yes.
at their, yeah.
okay, so for that, we're just talking about, the joint meeting we discussed was going over like the history of decisions over the last X number of years and just figuring out, like, if there's something that they're always approving, should we just make it a bylaw? If there's something they're never
Yep.
approving, should we reconsider bylaw language as a, you know, joint effort to do that? Okay, I think that's all we have on the agenda. Okay.
I was wondering when we do meet with the ZBA, another thing, and I don't know if people want to go down this road again, but the use variance, because that's what a lot of these things are coming in under is the use variance, and we've talked about it because we went to the class on it. And if you have strong bylaws and you have a master plan, you're trying to go in a certain direction, then the use variance is a loophole. So maybe that's something we can talk about with the ZBA,
Yeah.
what their feelings are, and
Yeah, even to just start the conversation, and it would be nice to have that together. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second.
All in favor? Okay, meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.